Hello, ghouls and ghoulies. Welcome to Scary and Bizarre Short Stories. I'm your host, Larry Lee Roden. I wish this story weren't true, but sadly, it is. You are lucky if a dark and evil being like this has never visited your bed at night. You may not want to read this story. Maybe by reading about this alien creature, it might awaken and slip into your room. I hope not. So, if you want to continue reading, I hope it's just another scary story to you. This wicked story is called Night Terror. They come in the night, slipping in and out of the shadows. What are they? Honestly, I wish I could tell you. It might ease my fears. These things, whatever they are frightening, and they may be deadly. Every fifth day, I stay with my mother for 2 nights. She's a little over 100 and can't be left alone. So we kids take turns spending days and nights with her. When it's my turn to stay, I've never regretted it. However, last night, things changed. Last night I was sleeping when something woke me up. At the time, I had no idea what time it was. All I knew was I was in my bed, and things around me were dark. The kind of darkness that clings to the walls and seems to swallow everything in the room. It was unnerving, to say the least. My heart raced as I lay still, sensing something sinister in my room. I strained my ears the moment I awoke, hoping to catch a sound that could explain what had wakened me. I saw something moving in the dark on the right side of my bed. I was mortified as I heard popping sounds, followed by a bump. This thing was moving closer to me. I tried to scream, but my voice was weak, and I believed I was the only one who could hear my screams. They echoed in my head. I lay still, not wanting this thing to know I was awake. It stirred around the head of my bed. Whatever the shadowy figure was, it seemed to thrive on my fear. My instinct screamed at me to move, to flee from whatever lurked in the shadows. I realized I needed to rise and confront whatever was in my bedroom. It continued to move about on the right side of my bed, inching closer to me. I was lying on my back, so I moved my left leg closer to the edge of the bed, thinking if I went slow, this thing wouldn't notice my movements. My breath was shallow and ragged as fear gripped my heart. In the darkness, I devised a plan. Slowly and silently, I slid my left leg closer to the edge of my bed. I had no idea what would happen once I slipped out of bed, but I had to try. I could move my head, arms, and left leg, but when I tried to move the leg that was close to this thing, to my horror, it remained immobile. It was like a weight had settled, rendering it as lifeless as a stone. Panic surged through me, mingling with goosebumps that prickled my skin. A sense of helplessness washed over me as I realized my right leg was paralyzed. The more I tried to move it, the more I realized I was confined to my bed. I was scared beyond words as my body tingled. I realized I was doomed. In my desperation, I turned to prayer. If I was going to escape this nightmare, it was my only hope. I prayed, knowing only God could save me now. I was at the mercy of this evil thing. I had never felt such evil. As I prayed, this thing knelt on the right side of my bed. I heard a rustling noise, the sound of pages being thumbed through frantically. It was so alien and chilling that it made my blood run cold. It was the most frightening thing I'd ever heard. My right leg was still immobile, and as I lay there listening, I continued my prayers as my body tingled. I don't mind telling you, I thought I was doomed. After a few moments, which seemed like hours, the rustling stopped, and all went quiet. I moved the leg that had been paralyzed, surprised that the paralysis was gone. I was too frightened to get out of bed, so I lay there as still as possible for minutes, listening and watching. The night was still, and this thing I had seen appeared to be gone. I assumed it might still be kneeling beside my bed or under it, so I didn't want to move. Again, chills covered my body as I stared into the darkness. I'd seen things like this before, something dark and evil standing in the night and coming closer to my bed. My body would become paralyzed, a symptom called night paralysis. This always frightened me, but it hadn't happened for years. However, last night was different, way different. This thing emitted pure evil, and I knew it was after me. I felt lucky to have survived the night. For the rest of the night, I opened my door and allowed the light in the hall to enter the room. I assumed this thing wouldn't come back if my room were lit. It didn't. The following day, I was happy to have survived the night. After I dressed, I checked the nightstand on the right side of my bed. That was the side where this thing was standing and knelt. I opened the top drawer and found a stack of papers. I thumbed through them without picking them up. Chills ran down and up my spine as the papers made the same rustling sound I had heard last night. Once more, I was terrified. You may not believe this story, but it's true, although I wish it weren't. Tonight I have to sleep in that room again. As I sit in the living room writing this, my body tingles and the thought terrifies me. It's been 2 nights now. I've discovered if I leave my door open and allow the light from the hall to enter the bedroom, I can see in all the corners. So far, this thing hasn't returned. The answer, I think, is to keep your room lightly lit. It seems this evil being doesn't want to be seen. I pray this is the answer. So far, it has been. I have to go back in a few days. You can bet your last dollar that that bedroom door will stay open, allowing the light to enter the room. I hope you enjoyed this story. Since this has happened to me, I certainly didn't enjoy writing about it. However, I wonder if night paralysis or night terror has happened to anyone else. If so, if you want, email me and tell me about your experience. l.roten@yahoo.com. Roten is Rhoton. I hope you enjoyed this scary and bizarre short story. If you would, please subscribe and give this story a thumbs up. I would appreciate it. As always, thank you for visiting my channel.